Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Richard Fleming, and today is Wednesday, the 30th of December, 2020. I had the opportunity last night to spend a couple hours online with a Zoom broadcast with Dr. Carla Graves discussing vaccines. This morning, I wanted to share something with you from one of the books that I've written called Unmasking CoViD, where we look at exactly how SARS-CoV-2 is able to reproduce or replicate itself once it gets inside of the cells of our body. To do that, I want to share the following part of that, one of the pages from the book with you, and show you this diagram. This diagram represents all of the genetic material that is found in SARS-CoV-2. This material, which has been isolated from real patients and also isolated from animal models as the studies of infectivity and this virus have been carried out to validate that this virus is responsible for coronavirus disease 2019, which probably should be called 2020. And this genetic material provides a lot of information that once inside of our cells does a variety of things. When we look at this part over here, these are the structural proteins. This is the genetic information that Pfizer and Moderna and AstraZeneca and Oxford all claim is included in their vaccines. The structural protein component of the mRNA is the information that is the messenger RNA that goes to the ribosomes inside the cells of our body to make the proteins. In the case of the vaccines, we're talking about the S spike protein, that protein that you've all heard so much about that allows the SARS-CoV-2 virus to attach itself to the outside ACE receptors of your cells and get inside. There's a limit, however, to how much of the virus can get in through the cells because with a limited number of ACE receptors, there's only so much of the virus that can get inside. However, with these vaccines, in their gain of function to bypass the limitations by putting the virus either inside of an adenovirus to further infect cells, or by putting it inside a lipid layer to be engulfed by the cells, the amount of information will be substantially larger than could possibly infect the cells naturally. Once this genetic material is turned into a protein, you have a spike protein. This end here at the very top is called the regional binding domain, and it attaches, the regional binding domain, RBD, and it attaches to the ACE2 receptor. This is what allows the virus to normally get inside cells. But on the other end of the spike protein down here is what's called the N-terminal domain. When antibodies are made to the N-terminal domain, this molecule changes its shape, opening up like a flower, the regional binding domain, increasing the infectivity of this newly made spike protein. If that wasn't bad enough, I have questions about what's in these vaccines because simply putting this part of the mRNA for the structural proteins into the cell doesn't tell your cell to make these proteins. Those commands come from this part called the open reading frames. In open reading frame 1, there are several enzymes that are made, replicase and transcriptase proteins, and in open reading frame 1b is the RNA-dependent RNA polymerase that gives the command to make the structural proteins. If the only thing in these vaccines are the structural proteins, there's no commands for our cells to make the spike protein. Since we're being told by the pharmaceutical companies without proof that the spike proteins are being made and there's a T cell and antibody response, we can only conclude logically that they are also including the rest of this material to allow the proteins to be made, which means they're including a lot more in this vaccine than they're telling us. And they're not being honest about that. And if they're not being honest about that, well, it's hard to know what else they're not being honest about. Today, we will sign documents refusing to take the vaccine for SARS-CoV-2. What you decide to do is completely up to you. I can only tell you what we're going to do.